I do feel comfortable with the position that there is nothing but Allah. It would be entirely possible for the statements that Allah sent a messenger or sent I think an angel, I'm not really sure, I can't remember exactly, to get the stuff that Adam was created from the earth and bring it to paradise. These are words that relate to us, but these are not words that relate to Allah. Right? You don't bring something to Allah that implies Allah is somewhere else. And the bringing also involves a process of time. And it would seem more likely that, I think more likely, that from Allah's point of view, there is not a separation between paradise and the physical world. That this separation between paradise and the physical world is from our point of view and for our benefit, but not from the point of view of Allah. So that, yes, it is true, Adam was created in paradise. Yes, it is true, Allah sent Adam out of paradise because of his transgression. But this is not bringing him into paradise and sending him out of paradise in the way that we think of going into and coming out of. That it may be referring to the experience of Adam's soul, which never really goes from one place to another. I don't know whether I really got that across. I'm trying to say that there's really nowhere else to be other than with Allah. From our point of view, there are lots of places to be, and there are lots of things, and as I was pointing out in here, we see a thing of separation. But the reality, even what we know from quantum theory, there is no separation. So quantum theory is sort of saying that there is Tawheed also. That separation is only in the mind of the perceiver. That there are not separate things, there are not separate places, there are not different times. That these only exist for our convenience, so we can exist in a call it dimension, a dimension where we have an opportunity to progress as Khalifa of Allah. And that all of this that looks like we're involved in is not the thing we are involved in. We are involved in the progression of our soul toward perfection. And it may not look, the progression of our soul toward perfection may not look anything at all like what we are seeing and what we are doing, although we have no other way to relate to it. And Allah tells us to relate to it the way that you see it being. But Allah does tell us that it is not the way that we see it. I am saying, since Einstein's special and general theory of relativity came along, he gave us our first glimpse outside of space and time. So now we can make some assumptions about reality from outside of space and time rather than from inside space and time. Although at this point they are very, perhaps these things I have said to you are very naive assumptions, because we don't have a very good look. I'm quite good as a scientist at looking at the physical world from the physical point of view. But I am an infant in trying to have a look at what physical existence is from the point of view of outside of space and time, or you might say, if I can say this, from the perspective of Allah as opposed to from the perspective of Allah's creation. We are just getting our first glimpse of how things may look from the point of view of Allah, where we had been set up to only see things from the point of view of His creation. and as we were told in that thing I read earlier, that we are not given much information about the spiritual world, just a little bit. So what I've tried to do is take that little bit of information from the spiritual existence and put it together with logic and Islamic theology and with what we know about scientific facts, and take an early stab at assessing what it all means. And what I'm really hoping will come from this, because I said earlier, please don't think that what I've told you, what I'm telling you today is like the absolute truth that is never going to change. What I'm really trying to do is help us get a glimpse of where Islam really can go and how much really is there in Islam. Because I cannot help feeling that the Islam that we see and that we talk about and that we live is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what Allah's real whole plan is. And I would like us to have a look at as much of His whole plan as possible. So I had to make some assumptions to have something to say. So these are the assumptions. These I would say, what I have said to you today are the most logical assumptions given the tiny bit of data that I have had to work with at the moment. And of course I take no credit for this to the degree that I have been correct. It is a mercy of Allah, and to the degree that I have been incorrect, I may have no idea how far from truth I am. But at a minimum, it is hopefully going to stimulate thought in some other scholars and some other thinkers to broaden our perspective of Islam. Because I don't honestly think that we are going to succeed because part of my personal goal, and I think it is the goal Allah has given to every Muslim, is the creation of a fully and truly Islamic world. And I don't think we are going to get there merely by praying and fasting and zakat and telling others that Allah is the one true God and reading Quran to them. I just don't think we're going to get there that way. I think we have to give them more than that. I think we have to let them see that Islam is something so much more magnificent than anyone had ever conceived of. And I think what I've been trying to talk about today, even if I have made some errors, it is really a magnificent thing. To see this overall plan. And for myself, I would have to say, even if I am wrong in my interpretation of the data, even if I am a little bit close, for me, it opens up vistas and possibilities in Islam that I find so exciting and attract me to Islam so much that, I mean, I have ended up dedicating 20-some years of my life to working on this kind of thing. And there's nothing else, you know, I mean, I don't sort of think to myself, wow, you know, I could have been making a couple $100,000 American dollars a year and be fairly rich by now, and, you know, have a Rolls Royce and houses all over the world, and think, why would I give up all that to do this? You know, this thing that I have been involved in, even if I am wrong, I feel like I have had a magnificent blessing and opportunity by Allah to even think these thoughts. Even if they were wrong, I feel like I've received a great blessing to think these thoughts. On the chance that I am a little bit close to right, I am just overwhelmed by the blessing that Allah has given. And if it does open up some vistas in the future for Muslims and non-Muslims alike to see the greater Islam, and the greater, I just know Islam is so much greater than we see it being. I mean, when I consider the